We're all very impressed.
Yeah. So we're going to finish up Proverbs today. Let's see, burps. And we'll move on to Job next week. So I've told you that Proverbs is a book of observations. So these are not promises. It's just things that wise people have observed over the years. And if you'll take a verse and just stick as a rule in front of it, you'll get the gist of it. And we're going to illustrate that a little bit today. One of the major themes of Proverbs is talking. Your tongue, life and death is the power of the tongue. That's actually a proverb. So okay, I'm trying to find my verse. Well, here's one. A lying tongue hates its victims, and a flattering mouth works ruins. Okay, that didn't do what I thought it was going to do. What? What happened?
Oh, I'm related to you.
What happened? Airplay passcode. There we go.
There was like a splinter in the finger.
What?
What do you do? You just keep going. You're just admiring all the work that's done. Danny, you have to understand it was right in front of me the whole time.
For context, neither Kevin nor I had noticed the hole. Now let's dig around.
What are they talking about?
A hole in the wall that was right behind you. It's not there now. We fixed it.
Oh, yay.
It was bothering everyone except you because you couldn't see it.
Or
Renee.
Or them, because they're too far away to see it, you know.
We're too old to see it.
I didn't say that.
Meanwhile, Proverbs 26, if we read verse 4, it says, don't answer a fool according to his folly, lest you be like him yourself. Very next verse, answer a fool according to his folly, lest you be wise in his own eyes. Well, they can't both be absolute statements. They're obviously contextually defined a little bit. And
But it depended on the fool.
well, the point being, it's contextually defined, right? And so the Proverbs very much believes in absolute truth, don't get me wrong. But the nature of this stuff is wisdom recognizes this context. Okay. And you deal with that. Since I have a static electric charge that makes things do. So a lot about talking, guarding your speech, being careful with that and the power of it. Which is why the Word of Faith movement went nuts with Proverbs, misappropriating it, but nevertheless, because those verses are there. So there's much to be gained by reading it. I have that power over folk. So in Proverbs, you know the structure of the thing. In Proverbs chapter 30, what's going on?
I think he's trying to connect with his TV.
Who's TV?
The one that his
Who's he?
TV.
Steve, leave my TV alone.
He might, that's a good point. But I don't think it would help because it'd be for this TV. And that wouldn't help anyone because somebody would be here. But I'll text him.
What are we talking about?
Proverbs.
No, I meant, what class does Steve teach?
He teaches the new Sunday school class, you know, where we used to be.
But that's clear at the other end of the church.
Yeah, it's all a network, it doesn't matter.
Our neighbor across the street used to could change the channels on our TV.
No.
Every so often, we'd have to like switch to a different, I don't know what you did to stop it, but. Oh, that's freaky. It was weird. Yeah, we'd be watching TV and our TV would start changing channel. And it is freaky. Yeah.
Actually, I didn't, but that's okay. Too connected. Your neighbor can change your channels. Too connected. That's my perception. Proverbs 31, verse 10. We know this verse. A woman of valor who can find? Or an excellent wife in the ESV, which is rather prosaic. Capable wife. Anyway. Well, this word, a woman of valor, I wanted to bring it up because it's a famous section of the value of a wife, but it's actually a poem about wisdom. Wisdom is being personified as a woman and what you want to do. And in modern Hebrew, the phrase is Eshet Chayil, and that means a woman of virtue. To show you how language changes. In modern Hebrew, that's more like a goody two shoes. So it's not necessarily a positive thing, unless you quote the whole verse. A friend of mine got married, and I quoted that verse to her husband, and she was appreciative. So wisdom and its power. Let's read this poem together. Starts in verse 10. And Jeff, why don't you read for me? No.
Yes, let's go. No, you're.
You just went.
You'll get an hour.
It happens. All right, Jeff. Is that big enough?
Excellent wife you can find. She is more precious than jewels.
Wait a minute. Do you want to close that door?
They'll be right back.
She is far more precious than jewels.
I have a question.
That's you do.
啊 Uh, 嗯
Now, this, ， it stems from this incident here. When I was in the hospital, and I've noticed this, Matt, I want your input. Female nurses never close the door. They pull it to, but they don't close it. It's just up here, and then I wait, and it drifts open. 3 women went out of that door and never closed it, just pulled it to. And just, what is that? Yeah, you went over and actually closed it because we asked you to.
You know what's hilarious, Tom?
What?
Nancy usually complains if I don't close the bedroom door all the way and just push it to.
Mine is a habit of a teacher.
So yes, it's one of those that if I'm in my office with a student and it's a female student, I do not fully close the door.
Fine, but when I was a teacher, I closed the door
I
in the
probably-
classroom. In the classroom,
Yes, but
not one-on-one counseling.
yes.
But I'm just,
Feel trapped. If the door is shut all the way, what did I do? Nothing, we're talking about.
You didn't shut the door.
and I have pointed this out over and over and over again. So is that nursing training or?
Oh, she locked the door out there like she was supposed to, so that's good.
Yeah, I did.
I was just curious. I go, why?
I don't know if I'm.
Why will they not close the door all the way?
Because it's loud. When you like open and shut it, it's loud.
It's disruptive if you're in here doing stuff like
Right.
you usually are.
Unlike getting up and walking across the
It
room.
also stems from like when you've got your babies down, and
Mm.
you wanna like leave the door open.
Yeah, just curious. All right, Jeff, if you continue.
Already know.
Um,
The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain.
All right, now again, read it this time, though. I mean, as you're reading it, think of it not as an extolling of an ideal wife, but as a position of wisdom in a person's life. Whoever acquires her.
That really creeps me out. Acquisition of a, I don't know,
Of
or no, if you're, well, I mean, as a wife or whatever, but
I don't think it's saying it there,
you get my point, right? Maybe?
but it doesn't say.
Meanwhile,
That was Don.
Sorry.
He does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant, who brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it, with the fruit of her hand she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the staff, and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised.
okay. One more verse.
Give her the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the gate.
So the book ends with this ode to wisdom via personification, which we saw twice in the opening chapters. Wisdom was personified, chapter 8, I think it was. The same idea. So the book is extolling the acquisition of wisdom, something you want to do. How do you do it? He gives you all kinds of ideas, and he points out this is wise, this is not. And the idea that it's automatic is not there. But remember the mindset of Proverbs. Everybody starts out inexperienced and untrained. They just can't help it. You're an infant. And if you live long enough, you'll gain experience. So that will kind of take care of itself, or you'll die. The trained, you have to be proactive about. You have to go after that. And in Proverbs, your life is the sum total of your choices. There is no victim in Proverbs. Yeah, you were born the son of a poor man. What are you going to do about it? That's Proverbs' mindset. You were born with no arms, no legs. That really sucks. What are you going to do about it? It's there is no woe is me sort of approach to life. On the other hand, the way we conduct ourselves, life is not fair, but we must be. That's chapter 1. Oh, well, crap. And that's the royal colors.
Color has significant, is that? Oh. The wife is royal?
Remember, it's not actually talking about a good wife. It's talking about wisdom.
Oh, wisdom.
Wisdom adds a royal element to your life. And then to the degree, hey, have you ever read Proverbs? We just read it. Would you want to be married to that woman? I'd like to go to bed now, sweetheart. She's up spinning the distaff, haranguing the servants. She's a little bit over the top. So I don't know. I personally find that a little much. But in verse 3, the point of the book, we start out with this. The point of the book is to give you discipline of prudence, righteousness, and justice, and fairness, which is not a normal word in the Bible. What you get are righteousness, justice, and usually covenant loyalty. That's the third element when you're reading in the prophets. But here it's fairness. Because he's saying life's not fair, but you've got to be. So you have to treat your neighbor with fairness. It's a sign of wisdom to be fair. Reflect on that for me a little bit. What do you think of that? We're Christians, so we always want to be fair. But I find it interesting it's actually recorded. Or not.
Well, one thing that occurred to me is it's pretty natural for Christians to ally themselves with other Christians and to feel a natural sort of opposition to people who live, selfish and secular lives. But As a Christian, I feel a lot of kinship with people who aren't necessarily believers, but they operate very fairly. You know, you can see the character in their behavior still. That's just what occurs to me.
Yeah, I bring this up because in a discussion with a young man, Daniel, he said, the Bible doesn't say anything about being fair. And I go, well, yeah, it does actually. And he gave me a typical snide, where? I took him right here. He went, it was really funny. And I said, and you're going to argue with me about what it says? No. Okay. Some have an adverse reaction to the idea that we need to be fair. Especially since life isn't. It's manifestly unfair. I mean, Jeff is not as good looking as me. I'm sorry, it just isn't. And so, yes, it took him a few years, but he finally came to terms with it. Treating people fairly. That's an interesting thing. And you go, of all the things in Proverbs, why you land on that? Because it's right off the bat and it stands out in that trio. Because the normal trio is righteousness, justice, and loyalty to the covenant. And he doesn't go there. He goes equity, fairness. And that makes me pause. And it shows up more than once in Proverbs, this idea of fairness. Just something to chew on.
When I think about it, I think we can be quick to judge people based on their circumstances, what they have or don't have, and I think part of that is having the wisdom to recognize that not everyone's dealt the same hand and that you accept them as they are. You don't pass judgment on like, oh, you're less than because you don't whatever the differences might be, but to treat everybody equally as human beings and see them as Jesus would.
Well, part of the word that the equity is it's the idea that it's fairness for the person, the individual. So you see them as the person that they are rather than the person. So I really like what you said there because it's about, but you're seeing the person's personhood rather, so it's fairness for them, the individual, rather than the group. And I think that's very interesting.
One thing, to me, the most important, I've taught Proverbs for 20 years. One of the things that strikes me that I really try to convey, particularly in this day and age, is that non-victimhood status. And say, no, you cannot look at life that way. You can't be a victim. The Proverbs does not allow it. The world, stuff is handed out unequally. You were born in a different situation than somebody else. What are you going to do about it? It's always your response. Proverb is your life is the result of your responses to events. And it's trying to teach you to react and to respond and to live in wisdom so that you don't overreact, misreact, whatever. But you don't buy the victim card. Don't let that play. You can do whatever your life is, you can change it if you approach it with a good attitude. All right, this is the last Sunday of the month, which means we're going to go do donuts. So we're going to stop here. And Shauna, would you close us in prayer, please?
Sure. Lord, thank you so much for this day and for this time and for healing Don so that he could lead this wonderful class. God, I just pray that you would be in the middle of our fellowship as we go meet with our brothers and sisters. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, let's go eat. Who had donuts this week?
There's nobody on the list.
Oh my goodness, we're freeloading.
There's no donuts out there, it's other things, but it's good.
Okay, so well, what is who's on the list for next week?
Other
Yeah,
than
go see.
It's not,
Yeah, it's good.
like
Go see.
eggs, like donuts or what? Yeah, I get, go get my day.
Steph Hush. Maury, what'd you see?
Bakers.
Oh, you just signed up for it?
Bakers.
Okay.
The hut bakers. They
Okay.
create donuts.
We need to go at it.
All right, so we need to sign up is what you're saying. Okay, see you guys outside. Thank you.
I mean, truly, I've been praying for you a lot this last few
Good.
weeks. It's just been. I'm so glad to see you.
Yeah, it's good not to be dead.
Yes, and it's good to be able to breathe decently, isn't it?
Yes.
Even better.
Find out how many.
They're all dead, I don't really have them.
They're gonna have stuff out there. Oh, I gotta stop it coming. I'm so tired of that. Oh, wait a minute, I gotta go to Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.